Hey everybody, so I'm still in California right now. I'm taking an extended personal trip because my best friend, or one of my best friends, just got married. I'm here at my dad's apartment, so I wasn't gonna do any work this week here, but I have to do work because Xiaomi just sent me this, the Xiaomi Mi 9T. So it's pretty funny that Xiaomi's based in Beijing, in China. I live in Hong Kong, which is also kind of a part of China. But then instead of sending me the phone from Beijing to Hong Kong, this phone was sent to me from Arizona to California. So anyway, this is Xiaomi's new budget device. It sells for 329 euros. That's about 370 US dollars. And at this price, you're getting a lot. You have, as you can see here, it's basically an all-screen notchless design, so it has a pop-up camera. So I'm gonna get to my dad's right now and do the unboxing, and then I'll be back with the hands-on. Alright guys, so I'm at my dad's apartment right now. That's my dad right there working, and I'm gonna do this quick unboxing, and I will take the phone out and about in California today to test out this camera. Yeah, so this version I have is 64 gigs of internal storage, and it's in glacier blue. Okay, this looks nice. It's a gradient color back. It looks very similar to kind of Oppo devices we've seen, like the Oppo Find X with the two gradient sides. But let's put it to the side first. And so remember, like just a year and a half ago, how crazy it was when we first saw a phone with a pop-up camera on the Vivo Nix and Vivo Apex, and then nowadays is like, it's everywhere and you can get it on a budget device. That speaks to how fast and how crazy Chinese phone brands work. So you get a plastic case. I'm probably not going to use it. I'm not a fan of these cases. They're too slippery. I prefer, if I use a case, I prefer to use leather. It's grippier, or it's something like aluminum, like metal. So we have some papers, warranty card. So this is my favorite part. Oh yeah. So here are the camera array. You have the 48 megapixel right here, and then this is the wide angle right here, 13 megapixel, and a telephoto 8 megapixel. And then you have a LED flash below it. I'm liking this power button right here. That's different color. This is kind of reminiscent of Huawei. And the camera bump isn't too bad. Very minimal. So there's a headphone jack up here, and the pop-up cameras right here. 20 megapixel pop-up camera. Down below, it charges via USB-C. Single bottom fine speaker grill, and this is a SIM tray. I'm pretty sure it's dual SIM. I don't know if it supports SD card yet. Let's check. Okay, no SD card support, I think. Yeah, no SD card, just dual SIM. So in terms of storage, this has 64 gigs, but you can also get 128 gigs of internal storage. So you have to, I would say, get the 128. So anyway, you guys know the drill. I'm gonna set this thing up, and I'm gonna go out, use it for a day, half a day, and I'll be back with my first look hands-on. Alright guys, I'm back with the Xiaomi Mi 9T. So I gotta be honest, it's very tough for me to evaluate this phone in June of 2019. The reason for that is because all the special features about this phone, like all the best things about this phone, including this gorgeous notchless display, a pop-up selfie camera, an in-display fingerprint reader that's fast and accurate, and a triple camera setup highlighted by a 48 megapixel main shooter. All these things are great, but they're not new. I've seen all these things in at least 7 or 8 other phones, including right here, the OnePlus 7 Pro. In fact, the 7 Pro basically has the exact same set of feature lists in terms of hardware at least. Now on the other end, you have the Realme X, which also has the almost exact same stuff I just mentioned earlier. So now that means when you're thinking of buying the Xiaomi Mi 9T today, it really comes down to preference. It really comes down to preference for software. Maybe you like Xiaomi's Mi UI more than Oppo's Color OS or OnePlus's Oxygen OS. Or maybe you have brand loyalty. You like Xiaomi more than OnePlus. Or maybe it's the price. Maybe this phone, which starts at €329, which is about 370 US, it's that perfect happy medium price for you, because the OnePlus 7 Pro, it's a little bit too expensive for you at $660. And the Realme X, it's cheaper than this, it's $250, but at the same time, that phone has an older Snapdragon 710 processor. This has a very new Snapdragon 730 that just came out like 2 months ago. So this might be the happy medium for you if you're not willing to spend more than $400 or $500, but you don't need to cheap, get as low as like $200. You can afford to spend a little bit. And if that is for you, then this phone is awesome, and I don't think you can have any complaints. So as I mentioned earlier, Snapdragon 730, it's a relatively new processor specialized for running AI tasks. I've already ran a Geekbench test, and you see 6860 multi-core, 2549 single core. So that's very respectable scores. And I use the phone all day today. It opens all the apps with absolutely no issue. Multitasking is easy and fast, no lag at all. Other than in the camera app, some of the buttons are not that responsive, but I'll get into that later. And I don't think that has to do with the Snapdragon 730 chipset anyway. It's more to do with the camera app of Xiaomi phones. Gaming performance is fine. So I'm playing Asphalt 9 here. This is a very graphically intensive game, and check it out. No drop frame rates, no stutter. This game is handling everything like a champ. Now looking at the rest of the hardware, you have a 6.4-inch display, 2340 by 1080 resolution. So this screen looks great. It's a OLED panel, and when you're indoors, you have absolutely no complaints about this display at all. Everything just looks stunning. Even outdoors, when you go into direct sunlight, as long as you ramp up max brightness to 100%, you can still see the screen. Now the screen is not as bright as a Samsung Galaxy S10 or even a OnePlus 7 Pro, but I think for $370, can't really complain. The screen is really good. Now this is a completely flat panel, so there's a little bit of sharp edge right here, but the phone fits in the hand very nicely. So the back, I think earlier I said it was glass. I made a mistake. This is a composite, but it feels very premium, very nice. It's curved on both sides, so it fits into your hand quite nicely. And right here, USB-C fast charging, and the battery inside is 4,000 milliamp hours. So the battery life is excellent. I've used the phone basically all day, like in the morning, all the way till right now it's 5:30 p.m., almost 5:30, and I'm still at 46% battery life. And the phone did not start at 100%. When I unboxed it, it was at like 75%. So I've only used about 23% of battery life so far. Now this pop-up camera right here, I do think it pops up relatively slow, and you see there's glowing light here and it makes this weird sound, but you can turn it off. But this is a little bit slow compared to on the OnePlus 7 Pro. But you know, this is Xiaomi's first pop-up camera, so I guess it's not quite fair to compare it to OnePlus, which is, you know, part of Oppo. So we'll check it out. So you see the camera pops up a lot faster on the OnePlus 7 Pro than on the Xiaomi Mi 9T. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the camera. So this 48 megapixel main lens right here, this is a Sony IMX 582 sensor. So it's a little bit older. I believe this phone has a Pro variant, which runs on Snapdragon 855. That one is a newer Sony IMX 586. But 582 is still pretty good, and the aperture on this is f1.75. And from my test photos so far, low light performance is pretty good, but it's prone to overexposure. But other than that, daylight shots come out absolutely vibrant. Now, again, you can shoot 48 megapixel photos with this, but I would highly recommend you just shoot on 12 so you can take advantage of the pixel binning, which adds more image information into your photos. So now this secondary camera here, it's a wide angle lens. It has an aperture of f2.4. It's a 13 megapixel shooter. And finally, you have a telephoto lens at 8 megapixel, f2.4. That allows you to get 2 times lossless zoom. Now I'm going to show you photo samples in a bit, but I want to first show you a little bit about the camera app. I'm not a big fan of this camera app. It's very complicated. Like, first of all, like, you have these buttons here that you tap or swipe to go to, but there's just so many of them. So I think Oppo does a better job with camera app in which they only leave 3 shooting modes, the 3 that you use the most in the main menu here, and then they have the rest in the hamburger menu that pops up. As it is now, if you say you want to go from Pro all the way back to slow motion, that's a lot of swiping, man. You have to swipe like 4-5 times, and on top of that, you have the button right here to zoom. You tap to go 2, you tap to go 0.6, or you can also just tap the button to jump between all 3 modes. You can go from 2 to wide right away, but you can't move, like you can't press on a button to slide your finger to zoom in like you could with many other phones, including, for example, the iPhone or even Huawei phones. So you see, this is quite useful to me. You can do that with one hand. With the Xiaomi Mi 9T, you cannot do that, so if you want to zoom, you have to pinch. So this requires a second hand. I don't think it's possible to pinch with just one hand. Now the portrait mode actually can get very good shot, but you really need to back up quite a lot. And I do like that you can tap on this button here, and then so you can adjust aperture on the fly. Of course, this is not like a real aperture, like a real shutter opening or closing. In fact, it kind of just simulates the fake digital depth of field blur, but you can get some impressive bokeh shots with this camera. The image sensor on this camera is quite large too, a 1.12 micron pixel size. So this camera is pretty strong, at least for this sub $400 mid-tier device range. But one thing Xiaomi's camera app does better than Oppo and OnePlus's camera app is that you can shoot wide-angle videos. You see, that's awesome. You cannot do that with a OnePlus or Oppo Reno, and it's frustrating to me. You can shoot videos with a wide-angle camera right here. In fact, the Xiaomi Mi 9T is very good at recording video. Check out right here, 1080-30. Stabilization is really good. I mean, I'm walking pretty fast here. Even when I jump up to 4K 30 right here, you still see it's still very smooth, very stabilized. Now, unfortunately, when I drop down to 1080-60, that's when you see stabilization takes a hit. Even wide-angle videos, this is a wide-angle video here, stabilization is pretty good too. So overall, this phone has a very, very good video camera. It's better than the video camera on most Huawei phones on the market right now, actually. Now let's look at the selfie camera really quick. As I mentioned, it pops up kind of slow, and by default, there's a beauty mode that's very, very exaggerated. So basically, if you pump up all the way to 5, it makes you look very fake. You almost look like an anime character. But if you go back to 1 or 2, I think it looks good. If you go to 0, then if you have bad skin like me, then you don't look that good. You also have remodeling right here. This is pretty fun. This allows you to make your eyes bigger, make your nose kind of thinner. So, you know, these are all things you've seen before, but it's always nice to have, particularly if you are into these things. You know, I like to laugh at these things, but what I've learned is that a lot of you know, young females actually like to play with these different shooting modes. Oh, there's also portrait lighting when you take selfies, which is copied from the iPhone, but I would suggest you just stay away from them. They're absolutely terrible. First of all, there's like this giant ass lag, so we'll check it out. I'm gonna tap on the shutter button right now, and then now it's processing. Now while it's processing, I can't do anything. You see, it's taking like 2 seconds to process, and then after that, this is the result. I mean, this is pretty damn scary. I mean, look at the edge detection. It's completely wrong. It's completely off. Like it cut off my ear basically. I have no ear right here, and not to mention it just takes so long. You see, so we'll do another one. We'll do leaves. So now. Right now it's processing, and then now it's just kind of frozen. Yeah, so this is this portrait lighting mode, I would suggest you never use it. It's absolutely terrible. But you know, overall, I think the camera on the Xiaomi Mi 9T, it's solid, it's above average. It's not the best camera out there, but I don't have any complaints. When you take photos in sunlight with good daylight, you're gonna get really beautiful, usable images. And the wide-angle camera and the telephoto lens, they both work as advertised. Like, you get some pretty clear 2x zoom shots, and wide-angle images, they turn out distortion free. That's because Xiaomi software is intelligent enough to fix the distortion immediately after you take the photo, unlike the Samsung Galaxy S10, in which wide-angle shots come out looking like a fisheye GoPro photo. Now when you take photos at night, they generally turn out a little bit noisy and grainy, but when you turn on night mode, then you do get an image that's a little bit better. Not as good as the night mode on Huawei phones obviously, or even the Realme X, but not too bad. You can post these photos on Instagram and you're not going to get clowned for it. So now as for final recommendation for the Xiaomi Mi 9T, I think if you live in Europe or North America, it's worth considering because this phone's under $400 US and you're getting a pretty capable device. But you live in China or Southeast Asia, then I think there are better options out there. I think the Xiaomi 16S, it's only a little bit more expensive, but you get a Snapdragon 855 chipset. And then something like a Realme X is also a lot cheaper than the Xiaomi Mi 9T, and that phone, it's just about the same. The Snapdragon chipset, it's a little bit inferior, 710, but I don't think the difference is that great to justify like the extra $70 that Xiaomi's charging. But you know, the Xiaomi Mi 9T definitely, if you like using MIUI, I think it's worth considering. So that's it for now. This is actually my last day in Los Angeles. I am flying back to Hong Kong tomorrow, so next time you see me, I'll be back in Hong Kong. Thanks for watching.